Hey guys, John with Mojave Trails here, and in this video we're going to make a set of these traction boards. But before we do it, let's talk a little bit about why you would want to make your own as opposed to just buying some. For me, the first reason is I'm kind of cheap and I don't want to spend $300 to $600 for a set of traction boards when I can easily make a set. And number two, these actually work better in my opinion. These provide more traction and function better than the ones that you would buy, even the high dollar ones. The other thing is you can kind of customize it to whatever you want. You can make it as with as much traction as you want. You can make it whatever size you like. I like the 24-inch size here. I find these to be very, very useful. Handy, not too hard to carry around, easy to stow. And also, they're very easy to deploy. You know, with some of the longer boards, oftentimes, depending on the terrain, you're trying to get it underneath the tire, and you're oftentimes, especially in the back tires, you're hitting up against the frame. And with this size, that becomes very easy. I don't really run into that problem. The other thing is, I like to make my traction boards with, as you can see here, some grip on the bottom. These are 2-inch and 2¼ inch lag bolts that I run all the way through it. In this case, it's a 2x10. And this gives me really good solid grip on the bottom as well. And that helps prevent the traction board from being shot out by the tire. You've probably seen that, or maybe you've experienced that yourself. And then the other thing is, you know, I like to use lag bolts. These are 2-inch lag bolts, like I said, 1/2 inch by 2. And they provide a really, really solid foundation. I don't have to worry about, you know, my tires breaking them off. They're certainly going to get a good purchase on them. I like the lag bolts because the hexagonal shape works really well for traction, but it also, you know, I don't have to worry about it really damaging the tire. And then I just go ahead and throw some kind of carabiner on the front with a, in this case, paracord, 10-foot paracord, so that I can easily retrieve them out of the mud and muck and snow when I need to. So that's pretty much about it. You can kind of obviously paint them whatever color you want. They're very easy to make. You don't really need a lot of skill. There isn't really a right or wrong way to do it. I kind of line these up just with some lines, but you wouldn't even need to make it that accurate. If you got a CNC machine and you want to make them super precise, you can do that. But to be honest, you know, your tires aren't going to know the difference. And as long as you follow this kind of a layout pattern, you're going to have plenty of traction. And the other thing is you can also take these, if you need more traction or higher, you can run these out a little bit more. You know, take every other row, run them out, and you've got even more traction if you need it. As far as materials, you know, like I said, I made these out of 2x10. You can make them out of plywood, you can make them out of, you know, regular wood, whatever you have. I've never worn a set of these out. I've given many sets away over the years. The majority of the cost in these really comes in the lag bolts. The lag bolts themselves were, at today's prices, I pay $25 for a box. And the use is just under a box for this 24-inch size. But of course, if you wouldn't happen to break one or, you know, have the wood rot away on you over time, whatever, you can reuse the lag bolts. They're gonna last a lifetime. So the majority of the cost, again, is in the lag bolts. The wood, this was left over on a project that I recently made a bed for my son, a platform bed, but again, an 8-foot piece of this, you know, lumber store today is gonna be maybe 12, 15 bucks. So the wood isn't very expensive. Tools, you need some kind of a saw. You could be a hand saw or a skill saw, something to cut a 45-degree bevel, a drill, a couple of spade bits, a larger spade bit if you want to drill these holes out to make it a little bit lighter, you know, a smaller spade bit for the hole to run the lag bolts in, and then some kind of a wrench to put the lag bolts in with. You don't even have to you don't need to put these holes in, but it does make it lighter, and you also wouldn't have to paint it if you don't want to. But again, if you want to paint it, you want to match your truck or your trim level or whatever you want to do, very easy to do. So yeah, with that, let's go ahead and make a set. All right, before we get going, let's talk about how wide you should make your traction board. And that's kind of a debatable topic, but what I like to do is measure my tires Again, my Gladiator has the 33-inch tires, stock from the factory Falcons. They're 285 R17, which means they're 11.5 inches wide, but that's to the outside. Inside the tread block, they're about 9.25 inches. So go ahead and measure the inside of your tread block. And I don't want my traction boards to be any wider than that. I don't want the side rails going up on the sidewalls. Especially if you're running 2-ply tires, you could potentially scuff or weaken the sidewall. So this is, like I said, I made mine out of a 2x10, which is exactly 9.25, even though it's called 2x10, the finished dimension is 9.25. So this works out really well for a 33-inch tire. If you go to a 35 or a 37, you could up this very easily to a 2x12, and that would most likely still keep it inside your tread block. I've spaced these out so that the outside of the lugs here is actually 8 inches from outside to outside. And so that keeps it well within my tread block, but still plenty wide enough to give me good traction as I need to as I drive on these, even if I have to turn my tires to get up out of a ditch or something. So yeah, go ahead and size your tires, and that's, if you want to follow along, that's the way that I built mine. It's worked well, and I can recommend it. All right, one final look at the Jeep, and then we begin. So here I'm starting with a 2x10. It's 8 foot long, and so use whatever material you're going to want to use here. Again, if you're using 2x10, 2x12, mark it off at 48 inches, and then go ahead and set up your saw, whatever you're going to use, to make a 45-degree cut. In this case, I'm using my circular saw. It's real easy to set the bevel on the saw. But again, if you just have a handsaw, you can use a guide or framing square and hold that at 45 degrees and do your best. Doesn't have to be perfect. Okay, now we just got to go ahead and make the cut. Here I'm using a framing square as an edge guide so that I can make a nice, clean, straight 45-degree cut. After that, I'm going to go ahead and flip this around and cut it, hitting the bevel in the other direction at 45 and at 24 inches so that I end up with 2 pieces. Okay, at this point we've cut our boards to the size that we want. We put a slight angle on here, 45-degree angle, or whatever you want to do. I've kind of laid out roughly where I think the hole should go, but really at this point it really doesn't matter. I like to alternate them. I like to go 4-3, 4-3. But it's really up to you. And as long as you have enough surface area across, you don't have to worry about your tires puncturing through on the bolts. So yeah, let me see. I got a 7/16 inch spade bit here, and I'm just going to drill a whole bunch of holes. All right, we've got all the holes drilled, and here I'm running the lag bolts in, and this is kind of a little bit out of sequence. I did it this way just because it made it a little bit easier for me than to line up the larger holes that I wanted to do where I want to put them. But again, there's a lot of freedom in this project. You can do it. You wouldn't have to do lag bolts. You could wait until the very end to put them in. You could drill your larger holes if you're going to drill your larger holes to make it lighter right after this step. That's kind of up to you. You just watched me take all the bolts out of here, and that's because I decided I'm going to sand it down and paint it. You wouldn't have to do that, and I haven't done it before in the past, but it does help it last a little bit longer, and most importantly, I think it looks a little bit better. All right, but I'm going to go ahead and sand this down on both sides and then give it a coat of paint. Once I had finished painting it, I went ahead and ran the lag bolts back in. I gave the whole thing another shot of paint all the way around so the bolts were covered. It looked really nice. And at this point, I was pretty much done. I did go ahead and add a little loop to the back and some cam jams and some paracord on it so that I could easily get it out of the mud or use it as tie downs, whatever I needed to. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a pretty easy and fun project to do. Thanks again. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the trail.